For this lesson, we're doing Module 5, Lesson 3. We're going to start by looking at Part B, which is a tape diagram that we have. We have a whole of 1, and we have 2 of our pieces shaded. So the first thing we're going to need to do with this question is figure out what our denominator is. So I'm going to count to see how many boxes I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know my denominator is going to be 5. So below, what I want to do right now is I just want to write the unit fraction. So how many out of 5 do I have shaded? Well, here's 1, and then this is my second one. So I would put a 1 down below again. So I have 1/5 plus 1/5. When I add fractions, I keep my denominator the same, which is 5, and I add my numerators, which are the top numbers. 1 plus 1 is 2. So I get an answer of 2/5. Now, we're also going to show this today with some multiplication. So again, I'm going to go back to the unit fraction. So how much is each piece? So each part or piece is 1 out of 5. So I'm going to need to use that today. So if each piece is 1 out of 5, so I'm going to take that, my unit fraction 1/5, times, I'm going to use multiplication. So I'm going to set it up, and by the end I think it should make some sense. So I'm going to go 1/5 times how many pieces I have shaded. Well, I have 2 pieces shaded, so I'm going to multiply by 2. Now, this does not look familiar to us right now. We have 1/5 times 2. We're not really sure how to multiply that. When you want to multiply with a whole number, like 2, you can put it over 1. So we have 1/5 times 2 over 1. So all I did was I put my whole number over 1. Now I can go ahead and multiply straight across. 1 times 2 is 2, and 5 times 1 is 5. So I get to my final answer of 2/5 that way also. This is just another way to multiply. So whenever you have a whole number, you can just put it over 1 and then multiply straight across. I still got to the same answer on both parts, so it works, and if I want to check it using my tape diagram, it would work also on there. Now for this one, I have my whole of 1, so they've already set that up for me. So I need to ask myself, how many pieces in my whole of 1? So I count 1, 2, 3, so I know my denominator is going to be 3. So now, I'm going to just break it apart into the unit fractions. So it's 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3. Now I have this piece over here. My denominator still needs to be 3 plus, and it's 1/3. When I add these up, keep my numerators across the top. Add them up. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, I get 4. Keep my denominator the same, 3. So I get an answer of 4/3. Now, if I want to show this using multiplication, I can. I have to ask myself, what is each piece worth? Or what is the unit fraction in this question? The unit fraction in this question is 1 out of 3, or 1/3. Now I'm going to multiply by how many pieces I have shaded. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces shaded. Multiply by 4. Now this equals 1/3 times, we talked about in the last question, when we have a whole number and we want to multiply, put it over 1, put the whole number on top, put a 1 on the bottom. Now I can multiply straight across. 1 times 4 is 4. 3 times 1 is 3. I get to 4/3. I got the same answer both ways. I could also count by adding my fractions, or I could look at my tape diagram. Both ways would work. It's very important that we notice what our whole is, because in our whole there are 3 parts, not 4. Now, for the next question, it says, draw a tape diagram and record the given fractions decomposition into unit fractions as a multiplication sentence. So there's a lot here, but essentially what we're going to do is the same thing we just did in the last one. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a tape diagram. I'm going to label my whole of 1 on the top. Now I can kind of start. So I'm going to need to break this into some pieces, I know. I'm going to come back over here and look and see a 5, so I'm going to break it up into 5 pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I'm going to need to shade 4 out of 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to put a bracket at the bottom. So now I'm showing 4/5. Now, when it talks about the unit fraction, I need to remember what each part is worth. So, how much is each part? So how much is each part? So Each part that I shaded is 1 out of, and then how many parts do I have total? 1/5. Now I can do my multiplication. So 1/5 times, now I need to ask myself, how many pieces did I shade total? I shaded 4. Now again, 1/5 times, I'm going to put my whole number 4 over 1 so I can multiply. Now I multiply straight across. This is just a rule that we need to remember with fractions. 1 times 4 is 4. 5 times 1 is 5. So I get back to the answer of 4/5. I got it here. So it worked both ways. The big thing to remember when we're dealing with fraction is how many parts are in each whole. That will help us give us our denominator, and whenever we have to draw a tape diagram, we'll need to be using those numbers.